Okay, I'm not going to totally repeat that because I was going to assume to a certain degree that people are taking these videos in the way I've set them up on the playlist where the one just plays after the other. Okay, the first leading thought, anthroposophy is a path of knowledge, and we're heading in the direction of what's it for. And we've started with the idea that part of what it's for is to heal the apparent split between our interior life and the world that seems to be outside us. And this is a split that's recognized by natural science and its questions about the limits of the human subjectivity. Now, what Steiner suggests in his GA 2, 3, and 4, his books on epistemology, is that we look ourselves as an I into our interior in a scientific fashion. So the subtitle of the philosophy of freedom is some results of introspection following the methods of natural science. Now there is a sort of weird thing there, and in Prokofiev's book on the philosophy of freedom, his book Anthroposophy and the Philosophy of Freedom, he talks about a term that Steiner uses called the exceptional state. And Prokofiev relates that to sort of one of the goals of the philosophy of freedom, which is to learn to do pure thinking. And in this, Prokofiev is just flat wrong. We have to, in fact, get used to thinking critically about the work of people in the field of anthroposophical spiritual science. They don't just get to say any old thing, any old time, and have nobody say, oops, hey, you blew that call. Now, I wrote a review of Prokofiev's book, and some people chastise me for being anti-Prokofiev, and I'm not being anti-Prokofiev, I'm being anti the absence of the scientific spirit in the Anthroposophical Society and movement. It's a disaster. Okay, but over here in real anthroposophy, we're trying to be scientists. Yes. So, let's be scientists. Well, Steiner uses the term, the exceptional state. He doesn't mean by it pure thinking. He means that effort inside ourselves by which the I turns around from looking out into the world of the senses and begins to become objective about its own subjectivity. Okay? And that's what we're going to do over the next few talks here. We're going to start to do that. I'm going to try to help people get the basic idea that lives in the GA 2, 3, and 4, which is that those books are maps. They're to help you study the territory, but the territory is inside you, okay? Inside you. So you have to turn around. Your eye has to look. Now the maps are helpful. And there's other people that have written about this. Okay? I wrote a book, or I collected a couple essays of mine in Living, Thinking, in Action. You can read it for free. And there's an essay, The Soul, Art, and Music of Discipleship. Enjoy a celebration of the soul, art, and music of discipleship. And it's about bringing the moral life as taught by Christ into this scientific investigation of the inner world. Because we don't just passively look at it. Our knowledge about the inner world, our thinking about our thinking, isn't meant to be passive. It's meant to be active, because anthroposophy is a path, an activity of thinking cognition that leads from the spiritual in man. That's why we turn around and look inside our own soul, because it's right there. You know, I read a passage earlier on from Occult Science where he says the path that he describes in Theory of Knowledge and Philosophy of Freedom is a path directly into the spirit. Knowledge of higher worlds goes through the senses, but we're going to go the other way. We're going to not leave Steiner's own path. Knowledge of higher worlds was not his path. We're going to follow Steiner's path, okay? And we're going to look at our own consciousness. And we're going to begin to be objective about it. And the best I can do is point out some features and give some hints and do things like that. But that's the exceptional state. Not what Prokofiev wrote in his book. The exceptional state is this turning around and looking at the own interior life. And it is a bit difficult. And part of the reason, at least my understanding and observation of it in myself and also in others, to the extent that one can do that, is that the difficulty is the shadow, which is why we did the shadow first. So that when you go on this adventure of trying to come to objective knowledge about your subjectivity, you have some basis for understanding some of the tricks that are going to be played there, some of this sort of present of trickster spirits, Coyote or Loki, depending on your point of view, or the Raven if you're from the northwestern part of America and you follow some Aboriginal teachings, the trickster spirit. Okay? The double is a manifestation of the trickster spirit, we could say, in a kind of way. We have our own little coyote in our heads. And it's meant to trip us and make us fall down, go boom. It's not meant to ease our way, it's meant to make us have to struggle with it. So don't be surprised that in getting your head around some of the concepts that I'm going to put out here, that it's hard. Now some people are going to watch this, they're already doing it. You know, everybody's in a different state. And everybody's got, you know, work they've already done. And you should honor that. I don't mean by any sense to say, forget everything you knew, Went knows better, and just do what I say. That's not what this is about. So, honor what you already know. Okay? Now what we're going to try to do is talk about universal qualities of our subjectivity, of our interior state, of our mind, of the soul-spirit nexus. I don't care what you call it. I think we all know what we got to look at. We know it more intimately than anybody else does as well. Nobody knows our interior life the way we do. Nobody ever will know it. And in fact, the own temple of the soul is individual. It's made out of mortar and stone in a certain kind of way, metaphorically, mortar and stone, an artistic activity. But we make it the way we want it to be, and it doesn't have to be like anybody else's. In fact, it's not supposed to be like anybody else's. Including what we think Steiner was about. That's one of the errors the double gets us to fall into, thinking we're going to be mini me Steiners, or later.